As a woman particularly, you're taught that those certain parts of your body are dirty, you shouldn't even look at them. We're taught to hate it. We're taught to think of it as something bad.
If she switches off her desire function, there are huge ramifications, not just for her, but in the world. Inside of a relationship or a marriage where the man has certain expectations, the woman doesn't know what to do. On the other hand, if you have somebody who is comfortable in their own skin,
Equally vilified.
We,
in ancient India, considered pleasure a Shakti. It's an energy that rises through you. And pleasure is not just to do with sex. Pleasure is where every bit of you comes alive. So the opposite of pleasure is dullness. It's where you stagnate, you become dull, you become dead.
Kundalini, the Shakti, that incredible innate power that we all of us have, men and women. We can't choose to be powerful in one area and not in another.
The woman is not born, created by God to say that she's only coming to serve you. No man was born with an organ which says, I am the master. A lot of the young women will always say, I've always wanted to work because I want my mum to have what she didn't have. Your needs came after everybody else. 98% of women have at some point in their lives go through sexual harassment, sexual abuse, sexual assault. Interestingly, the love festivals of ancient India were not about couples. It's not like Valentine's Day. It was about bringing the earth back to her pleasure, because once the earth is in balance, once she can feel her pleasure, the universe is in balance. Everything in life is connected. Everything was created by God, so everything is connected, and you have to learn and understand everything. One of the reasons that a lot of women do not get orgasms during penetration is because
for centuries, sexuality has been spoken about through men's voices, rarely women's. Seema Anand is changing that. A mythologist, a narrative practitioner, and a master storyteller, she brings women's voices and the true depth of the Kama Sutra into modern dialogue. Her book, The Arts of Seduction, reframes it not as mere positions, but as a guide to mood, ritual, and the language of presence, the language of love. Her TEDx talk has over 14 million views, and with nearly 1 million followers online, plus a Cosmopolitan Award for Sexual Health Influencer of the Year, she's become one of today's most trusted voices on intimacy and pleasure. Seema Anand doesn't just tell stories, she transforms people through storytelling. And in this episode, we will delve into the art of seduction, sensuality, and erotic lovemaking and intimate connection. Seema, welcome.
Thank you so much.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good.
You've just come back from holiday. You're all tanned and gorgeous.
I've been doing a lot of diving, as I do. And,
that's so cool.
And you look amazing.
You're so kind. Thank you.
No, you really look so vibrant. You have spent quite some time understanding the art of seduction and really studying the Kama Sutra, probably in a way that I don't know anybody else has done. I know that you're focusing a lot these days on sort of conversations and subjects that people find difficult to talk about, and even things that are taboo in the area of intimacy, lovemaking, sex, and so on. It's baffling to me that we're never specifically taught about the sheer power of sexual union. It's really astonishing to me. It's a little bit like with the subject of money, and yet it's so potent, right? It's such an incredible dormant power lying within us to be explored, to be expressed, to be enjoyed. And especially we're not really taught about how to engage intimately with our partner. Yeah, it's really baffling to me. And we're kind of mostly expected to fumble our way through to finding a sort of a comfortable way of coexisting in a marriage or in a relationship, and hope that we'll make it through. But isn't lovemaking, we're just talking about scuba diving, but isn't lovemaking just as much of a skill to learn as anything else in life that you would become a master at, or that you would enjoy because you've practiced it enough, or that you've understood it, or you explored it and studied it just enough to give you the freedom to enjoy it?
Absolutely. I think actually it's not just enough. The more you study something, the better you get at it. And sex is definitely one of those things that the more you do, the better you get at it. You cannot suddenly go from 0 to 100 with absolutely no information on it. And the thing is, it's not just that we're not taught how to understand it well. we're taught to hate it. We're taught to think of it as something bad. So we're conditioned to believe that it's an ugly thing, it's a dirty thing, it's a bad thing. And then you're thrown into this situation where suddenly you now have a legal partner. So as a woman particularly, you're taught that those certain parts of your body are dirty. You shouldn't even look at them. If something happens to you, it was something that you did. You look a certain way, hence people are going to attack you. They're going to molest you. You know what I mean? Like, you carry so much guilt and hatred for your own body. You're taught to do that. And then suddenly you, let's say, get married. And overnight, you're supposed to become this master in bed. Like, you're supposed to be incredible. And I find it really weird that, this whole idea of the pure, the perfect woman.
The nari, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just that it's the woman who's never even thought of it before, never touched herself, but equally the woman who immediately overnight after getting married becomes this incredible woman in bed and is able to perform in a way that she's never even been told that it's possible to perform. I just think that the worst thing that we have done is to create so much silence around it. And that silence mixed with the fear that comes with it. Can you imagine how dysfunctional our brains are when it comes to relationships? We have this expectation of what is required of us, and there's nobody actually teaching you the right way. Do you know how many men and women, but particularly men, who write into me saying, oh, my parents said I had to, particularly men from the South Asian background. So, like, let's say India or Pakistan or Sri Lanka or whatever. It's an arranged marriage setting, and he'll say, oh, my parents insisted that I should get married. So I agreed with them, and they said, let's say the guy already has a girlfriend. They were like, no, my parents said I can't marry her. I agreed to go with whatever their choice, but I don't like her. She's nothing like me. It's nobody I want. It's not her fault. She is now being treated really, really badly by the partner because the parents decided that they should pick who you have to have sex with for the rest of your life. And what are women taught? She's been picked because, oh, she's this good girl. She's so religious. That makes her a great person. She's so obedient. That makes her a great
malleable.
Person. Yeah. And it's the same thing that the guy is saying, I don't like her. She's so religious. All she talks about is this. I don't like this. It's not the woman's fault. And yet we're being made to deal with this shit.
So we get vilified from both sides. On the one hand, as you've just said, inside of a relationship or a marriage where the man has certain expectations, the woman doesn't know what to do and doesn't have this confidence to express herself in an intimate way. And on the other hand, if you have somebody who is confident in their own skin, who's comfortable in their own skin,
equally vilified.
So you can't win.
And not just, I've even had I've had men write into me and say, the first time we had sex, she didn't feel the pain. Does that mean she's not a virgin? Like, pain is not essential. Some idiot somewhere in history put this down as, this is the mark of virginity, is that she is supposed to have pain. You keep beating your head against a wall and saying, pain is not natural, it's not normal. If she's feeling good, if she's been exercising, if she's sort of learned how to stretch her body, she's not going to be in pain. And you don't want her to be in pain. That's really not what we're looking for. But yeah, so there are women now fighting to prove their virginity. And of course, virginity is not a medical condition. You can't prove that you haven't slept with anybody else. But the guy has decided that the memes he's learned from, or the other men that he's learned from, have said, a woman must have pain the first time. And then we also have all of these people who write in, again, the women as well as the men, about how the woman is just not interested enough. She's not excited enough during sex. She's doing it just to make me happy. Or she's saying, I don't really enjoy it. What do I do? Do you know, women are never taught how to feel during sex. Are we ever taught that when you feel pleasure, this is how your body will feel. This is where your brain will be.
Yeah.
This is what you'll want to do with your body. This is how you'll want to, move it. Even the way that you move your body when you get excited, when excitement mounts, when you're kissing somebody and you're getting more and more excited, you know how your body tends to stretch out. We tend to stretch our legs out. You make them straighter. You kind of press them together. There are certain things that we do with our bodies. We're not taught that that is what is causing the arousal. We're taught what you have to do. So this is how you must position yourself. This is what, you know what I mean? So we're taught performative sex, basically.
The sensuality is lost. And I think also there's a precursor to that, which is how this is how we dress, and if you dress too sort of like you're wearing a dress, clingy dress or something, then that makes you a certain type of person.
Yeah.
So we have that stigma with that. And in the West, not so much, but if I were to wear a shorter skirt, we would get there sooner or later. So we're kind of moving the boundaries a little bit in terms of perception from East to West, but it's still there in the West in many ways.
Absolutely.
And I think what that does to a young woman who is a teenager growing into being a woman and then into her 20s, it's very confusing. On the one hand, there are these role models that we have, which are, and they are all admired because of their hotness, and then if you were to dress like that,
yes.
The reaction, the reaction is very, very different.
Yeah.
So it becomes really confusing. And I think from the point of view of the erotic self, it almost completely suppresses, a female psyche into not knowing exactly how much to express with whom. So we're in, let's say, in India today, where we see a lot more freedom than we've seen in the way that young generations would dress and so on. What I see is that because such certain freedoms haven't been there before, they almost go to the opposite extreme. And so there is some kind of an ideal that young girls might be trying to emulate. And what happens in that process is that they kind of go to the other extreme, and it doesn't necessarily express who they are authentically. And so it looks awkward.
Well, I think there are two things over here. One is that media gives you one image of sexy. We all want to look good. We all want to, in our own way, feel sexy, whatever sexy might mean to all of us. And sexy is different to everybody. Okay?
Yes.
But if media gave you 5 different images of feeling sexy, somebody wearing a sari and feeling sexy, somebody in a short bodycon dress feeling sexy, somebody in jeans and like a baggy white shirt, which is, according to me, a very sexy look, feeling sexy. Somebody else might feel sexy in, there are certain types of t-shirts and cargo pants that you might wear. There are all sorts of ways to feel sexy. Are we taught that that is sexy? No, we are only given one image. And so every young woman who's kind of growing up to want to look good or feel good is looking at just that one image, right? That's a huge problem for me. The other, of course, is that as a woman, let's say if you go out dressed, like I tend to wear a lot of saris, but I tend to wear the very traditional saris. I love my traditional saris. I don't generally wear the more modern sort of, the chiffony ones or the georgette ones. That's not me.
The clingy ones.
Yeah, or not even so much the clingy ones, but just the kind of fabrics that I like the weaves. Now, these have been traditionally seen as old-fashioned saris. I get told this all the time. When I started wearing saris, I would wear them every day, and this is what I like to wear. I'd get told this all the time. Why are you dressed in this old-fashioned way? What are you doing? I remember going to a nightclub in one of my saris. It's what I felt really good in. And I was told, what are you doing? You're going to the... So we're also judging women for dressing no matter how they dress.
So it's about self-expression is totally driven by perception, what we think other people will approve of. And for me, I feel like that's the nub of the issue to begin with. Because if we don't figure out, one of the aspects of self-discovery is to really understand what makes us who we are, as in like our uniqueness. And as you mentioned earlier, that different people will feel fabulous in different type of clothing, which would suit them and it makes them feel really good. It's an expression for them. Whereas, we're trying to fit into the mold of trends, we're trying to fit into the mold of fashion. We kind of could lose that, right? And one of the main things I think it comes down to when we're talking about partnering, like coming into intimacy with our partner, is really about being comfortable in our own skin. And if we can't even begin to express ourselves through our clothes, we're kind of a little bit stilted and stuck in approval from others to begin with.
We're totally stuck in permission. My work actually started from exactly this point. So I've been a storyteller for 100 years. Well, for 100 lifetimes. We believe in our mythology that to become a storyteller, you have to get permission from the goddess. So you cannot just be a storyteller. That she decides if you can be one of her storytellers. And when you become her storyteller, you become immortal, meaning that in between lifetimes, you do not go to the land of the dead because there they wipe your memory clean. So you can't afford to lose all the stories because you cannot learn all the stories in one lifetime. So you are turned into a rat and you live in her temple. And then you come back in your next life and become a storyteller again. But then that's it. You're committed for every lifetime to being a storyteller.
Is that true?
Well, that's what we're told. Okay. And I just love the idea, the fact that for 100 lifetimes I've been storyteller, rat, storyteller, rat, storyteller. That's my eternity. But I remember I had my third child, who was a girl. And I remember one night sitting up, feeding her. She's now 27 years old. And I've always worked with stories. I work with women's narratives because I believe that the stories we tell define our identities. You tell stories of the good woman who's always quiet and sacrificing, then you expect that to be the good woman. The one who then opens her mouth is the bad woman, and so on, So we create identity through stories. Yeah. So I just remember so vividly sitting up one night, I was feeding my baby, and I suddenly got to thinking that we tell all these stories about women in all their aspects. We never tell stories of a woman's right to her own body. It belongs to somebody else. It's always, in all the stories, that your pleasure depends on somebody else's permission. How you look, how you are viewed. It doesn't matter how the other person views you. You become responsible for how somebody else views you. It's always, the blame is yours, the permission is somebody else's. It's ridiculous.
And yet, Kundalini, the Shakti, that incredible innate power that all of us have, men and women, is fundamentally that feminine expression. And we can't choose to be powerful in one area and not in another.
Absolutely.
So I think for me, the interesting thing about what you're doing, and which I'd love to support you in your journey with this, is that we need to understand that power is power. It can't be. It's woven. It's a bit like the cloth, the fabric of your sari, the way it's woven.
Yeah.
You can't unweave it. Yeah. You can't choose this thread or this thread.
Yeah.
They all come together. And that's what makes a specific female a woman. And if she switches off her desire function, the calm function that she innately might express as a human being or feel, if she switches that off, then there are huge ramifications in not just for her, but in the world.
Yes.
What happens when a woman zips herself up and says, okay, I don't enjoy this. I'm going to just, think of England or India or whatever and survive
but
this.
See, okay, so this is exactly it. So I often say that, we in ancient India considered pleasure a Shakti. It's a Shakti, it's an energy that rises through you. And pleasure is not just to do with sex. Pleasure is where every bit of you comes alive. It's where all the nerve endings come to life. So the opposite of pleasure is dullness. It's where you stagnate, you become dull, you become dead. It's that whole sort of numbing of the senses, the rising of the senses, the awakening of the senses was seen as pleasure. And like you said, that courses through you. There's no divisions like this is the pleasure for reading a book. This is the pleasure for sex. This is the pleasure for eating a good meal. It isn't. It wakes up every part of you. Pleasure is a Shakti. And what you just said about the ramifications, it's interesting because some years ago I discovered, so as you know, the Kama Sutra was written in around the 4th century CE. And we're not really sure of the exact date, but it's about then. And so much of it has been lost. So much of the Kama Sutra has been lost because even if you know Sanskrit, a lot of people will say, well, what's the original Sanskrit version? The Kama Sutra, like all of our other Shastras, are written in metaphor. Okay, so it's not that you translate the word and you understand what it means.
Yeah.
You have to understand the backstory of every word.
And every word is absolutely loaded. There's no spare words in a sentence.
No, absolutely. And each word has a backstory that tells you what that sentence is referring to. And I came across a bunch of names, and I did not know what they stood for. I have discovered over time that each one it's a Kama festival, a love festival. Now, we don't have any information on these festivals. So at the moment I'm researching, and I have been researching for the last several years now. Now, interestingly, the love festivals of ancient India were not about couples. It's not like Valentine's Day. It's not about couples coming together. It was about bringing the earth back to her pleasure because ancient India, unlike ancient Europe that believed that when natural catastrophes and calamities happen, it's because the gods are angry with you. Ancient India believed that it's because the earth has lost her pleasure. She's forgotten her pleasure. And so these love festivals were about reminding the earth what it feels like to have the sap run through her veins, to have the blossom sprout on her branches, to have the waters run through her rivers. It was about bringing her back to that. Because once the earth is in balance, once she can feel her pleasure, the universe is in balance. And these festivals were conducted by women. So it was women, not a male priest who would come together and be given lots of money to do this prayer. And that's why I guess these festivals died out. It was the women who would come together and perform these to bring the earth to her pleasure. And I personally think that that is one of the most beautiful things that I have ever heard. That yes, the universe, the balance of the universe depends on the pleasure of a woman.
Do we know what they did at these festivals?
Yes, there are several of them. So there are some really beautiful ones. I think the first one I discovered was the painting of the foot with alta, where you would paint the underneath of the foot with the red paste.
Yes.
That's a very big part of the erotic vocabulary of ancient India. So when you had sex, when you made love, as opposed to today when you'd kind of wash off your makeup and get into your old nightie and then put off the light, they believed that this was special, so you got dressed for it. And I think that's something that we miss, right? And part of this whole getting dressed for it was that one of the Sola Shringar, one of the 16 forms of ornamentation was you painted the underneath of your foot with alta. And several of the positions were such that it would leave the alta mark on a man's forehead. There's a very, very popular position. So the most popular position was where the woman would be underneath and her feet would be here on the man's shoulders. And that would anyway rub off. And the reason for that was that it kind of changed the angle of penetration. It made her feel less pain. he could penetrate deeper. There were all sorts of things, but there's a very special position called the split, where she would have one foot here on his forehead and one across his shoulder. And that was a very special position because it gives you a little tilt to the pelvis, which means that the clitoris is stimulated a little bit more. It gave her more pleasure. But that would always leave the altar over there, and it's very difficult to rub off. So if you saw a man with a bit of that, you knew what he had been doing, right? So that was a very important part of the erotic vocabulary of a woman. And just the beauty of it is what I absolutely love. So one of the festivals was where women would actually paint their feet with altar, and they would knock tree trunks. They would knock a tree on the trunk with that altar painted foot to raise the same desire in the tree.
Amazing.
There was another, and so they weren't what we consider as what you think of as Valentine's Day expectations. They were really focused on erotic vocabulary, on what you felt when you thought of certain things. Another one, which I think is absolutely exquisite, and it's still practiced in some places, is where certain trees would only come to flower if women got round and sang to them in notes that resembled the buzzing of a bee, the humming of a bee.
Like a Brahmari type thing. Yeah.
So that was one of the festivals. There was a few of these that absolutely are beautiful. Holi was one of the love festivals.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So this is like what you're talking about. You know, it makes me think of Sati when she decided to leap into the fire, and she said, "I'm not coming back." I mean, before she took birth, she said to her Prajapati father Daksha, she said, "I will only come here if you promise to treat me with respect. Okay, if you promise to honor me for who I am," and meaning the woman, as in the feminine, the divine feminine, or the feminine in general. And when that stopped happening, she said, "I said that I would not stay around if you stop respecting me, and this I'm leaving now." And she decides to jump into the fire, and then she exits. And I can't somehow stop thinking of what's happening, you know, in the arena of how women are perceived and how they're talked about. Especially when we're talking about sensuality, sexuality, intimacy, and in particular when we're talking about the expression of our innate sexual sense, you know, in just every single day, you know, in how we dress, how we look, how we relate to people, like just allowing for that freedom just to be sensual, as in like who you are as a feminine being. I feel like, for me, it feels like a deep dishonor of women as a whole.
It is. It's the language that is being used, which bothers me so much, because it's not just that you're putting the woman down. It's the extreme disrespect and abuse that is deeply embedded in the language that you use to make it sound like, you know, the worst that you can make it sound. And I think that really bothers me. And I find that in recent times, there's a bunch of people who call themselves Baba and Acharya and, you know, and all these sort of internet gurus suddenly who have just decided that all they're going to do is focus on a woman's body and what she does sexually. I mean, for God's sakes, you have decided that you're celibate, that, you know, you've taken this particular route. Talk about things that have to do with the mind. Tell people, educate them. Why are you focusing so much on what a woman's sexual activity should be or is, or you think is? And in the language that they use, I'm sorry, but I find it extremely upsetting.
Totally get it. I'm so with you on this. It's that the control element, you know, and I think the dichotomy is that I wonder whether that is coming from the very place that we started talking about earlier, which is that the lack of satisfaction they have in their own intimate lives, and therefore they want to project that outwards. And the guilt that if the guilt they themselves feel for whatever fantasies they might hold in their heads, what's missed out in all of this is the incredible potential for health in relationships, when we allow for understanding and supporting a woman in her self-expression,
in her sensual journey.
Yeah, in her erotic sensual journey.
Yeah.
Intimacy. Because intimacy requires you to actually trust the person you're with, right?
Yes. And to love your body. You need to feel that this body is going to give you pleasure, not to be scared of it and hate it for everything. I mean, honestly, I can tell you that 98% of women have at some point in their lives, either as little girls or growing up or later, go through sexual harassment, sexual abuse, sexual assault. Where I was living, I would sort of walk down the road to get to the tube station. And there was a group of builders who were working over there. And somebody would always sort of hoot. And you know what? I stopped going out because it bothered me. It was scary. I didn't like it.
It felt like harassment.
Yes. Yeah. And it felt like a violation.
Yeah.
And it wasn't okay. And I hate it when people say, oh, it's supposed to be a compliment. It's a compliment if I think it's a compliment. Yeah. But then again, in my time when I was younger, we were taught that as a woman, if you got unasked for attention, you were supposed to be flattered. We've been told that, and it's not just women, but men and women, society has been taught that if sex doesn't go well, it is the woman's fault. If a man cannot get an erection, it's because she didn't seduce him enough. She didn't excite him enough. Somehow it was her. And the worst of this is that men are not really taught to express their needs either. So, you kind of land in no man's land. You land on a zero.
And also if you have an expression, like you are with a man and you are actually expressing yourself, you have a certain amount of freedom with being with him. A lot depends on his ability to be able to be with that, right? So how secure is he sexually? That what it really comes down to is how secure is he in his own masculinity, that he's able to be with a woman who can actually, give him whatever it is that he thinks he should be getting. And the thing you mentioned earlier was that women feel responsible for ensuring that he climaxes. Somehow he should be taken care of. What about me? Well, okay, I'm not going to look at that or think about that unless you happen to be lucky enough to be with somebody who really cares. I mean, how many men genuinely care about whether the woman orgasms?
Exactly. But also, even the ones who care, it's like not really understanding what to do. So I had this young couple who wrote to me saying, so this young woman wrote, they're in their early 20s and they're each other's first partners. And she said, my boyfriend has been wonderful. He's so generous with his time, always makes sure that I climax. But he has never been able to climax with me, no matter what I've tried. I've looked at videos, I've Googled stuff, I've tried this, I've tried that. And he can always climax when he masturbates, but I can't make him climax. And she kept saying, I can't make him climax. And now he's saying, well, if I can't climax with you, maybe I need to explore a different relationship. Maybe this one needs to come to an end. If we can't actually, there's no sexual compatibility. And I've just written a book on this, so the book will come out by the end of the year. But I treated this as one of the chapters because it's very typical, that if you cannot climax, it must be because of her. She couldn't make me come. And your body can only come from yourself.
Like what's going on in your mind?
You cannot, nobody else can make you come. So also people are never taught that if they can come through masturbation, that is so different to actual partnered sex. It's two completely separate things. So, the fact that it could be a whole different bunch of things rather than this woman who is just constantly looking at videos and trying to figure out what is lacking in her.
What's lacking in me.
Yeah. And she said, what really made me sad, I mean, a lot of people go through that, but she said, I'm really worried that, she said, I'm very sad if this relationship finishes because we do love each other. But what worries me is that if I'm no good at sex, will I ever be able to have a relationship? And I'm just thinking, this is going to embed itself in her brain. And this is the real damage. What happens with the relationship? People do grow up, they do find other people. The real damage would be she thinking that somehow she's lacking, that she is damaged. And I just think that what good are we doing our children if we're sending them out into the world with this kind of self-unhappiness? You know, we just need to be able to kind of break this shackle or this box around saying, we will not talk about sex because that's a bad thing, that's a dirty thing. And of course, I get a lot of people saying, well, if we teach them sex education, you're teaching them how to have sex. Like literally people have this belief that this is what they're...
As if they're not going to do it otherwise.
And I keep saying to people, look, you know, the anatomy of the woman is such that penetration, the way that the physical anatomy works, penetration very seldom ends with orgasms for her.
Most women, yeah.
So if you feel that that is necessary, the Kama Sutra says that you must always bring a woman to orgasm twice before you actually start penetration. So you get her to orgasm because a woman, once she orgasms, the excitement builds more. And then you go ahead with the penetration. Then everybody's happy after that, you know. It works for everyone.
But also it's the woman's anatomy is so concealed, and I'm not even sure scientists have actually discovered all the places which are erogenous, as they call them, within the female body where climax can take place, you know, where arousal can actually take place. And it only can happen over time if...
With exploration.
And particularly better with a partner who can, you know, it's a lot more pleasurable to do it with somebody than... I mean, some people seem to enjoy solo sex, you know. I don't know.
I think solo pleasure is extremely important to understand your body.
Right.
I'll tell you why as well. You know, in every space of our body, so the Kama Sutra says that the places where you don't have hair are more sensitive. So that doesn't mean that like you wax even on the skin, but like if your arm is normally hairy and you wax it and that it should become more sensitive. What it means is areas that don't generally have hair. So
like the neck or the
neck or the nipples or whatever.
Or the eyelids,
you know, there are different places. So, you know, you're already sort of, let's say you're exploring one of those areas. Let's say you go with the breast. The nipples are very sensitive, but each woman likes them to be stimulated differently. Now, yes, that has the potential for being an erogenous zone, for bringing you to pleasure, but you need to understand how you like yourself touched over there. The same thing with the clitoris. You cannot do the same thing to everybody's clitoris to make them come to pleasure. For some women, they need a lot of stimulation. For some, the barest touch is too much. For some, it has to be touched on the outside, not even directly. If you're going to touch me in a way that's going to put me off, the sensation is too much, it gets me worked up, it gets me put off, I wouldn't want to be touched there again.
Well, again, it's about harmonizing. So if it's a partner that you're getting used to, somebody new, and in the early stages, there might be an extreme amount of stimulation, and you know, you can only stay there for a second or two, and then as you get to harmonize with each other's energy and so on, you know, you become a little bit more able to hold that extreme energy, you know, that extreme intensity that's there. And so that changes over time. And again, the same with you were talking about the clitoris, but the breasts again, over a woman's journey, you know, at one time in her life, that could be extremely sensitive, and at a later time or whatever, another time.
She needs a different type of stimulation.
It changes. Yeah. And a lot is about, so nothing is static in these areas. And the one thing that astonishes me about the human body is that there is just so much scope for newness, you know, for sensual sort of
the exploration
in different, you know, both for men and the woman. And I think unless you're comfortable with somebody
you cannot really go down
you
that
can't
path.
go down there. And it just remains at the level of sex, because now I think what we're talking about here is that which doesn't feel like sex, although it's,
Yes.
it doesn't feel like sex.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're so right.
I mean, I almost never have sex in that regard. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not a carnal thing.
No. It could be, like you said, the excitement comes from so many different, not just so many different parts of the body, but so many different ways of accessing that desire.
Mm.
So one of the other questions in the book was somebody had written in and said, can you write us a vlog on what we should do if we're both working, we're both tired when you come home? How do you actually manage your day and yourselves in such a way that you feel like having sex in the evening? Like you're not just so tired and like, okay, forget it, I can't deal with this. So my first reaction was to write a chapter which kind of talked about building up companionship, building up a lot of stuff together. I think one of the sexiest things that people can do is to cook together. I think it's fantastic. To me, that is relationship foreplay, like literally. There can be, go hiking together. I think doing physical activity together is, again, relationship foreplay. Then I went through all of these things. I talked about how sometimes it's quite nice to just sit next to each other and do your own thing, do a crossword puzzle while somebody reads or whatever. Build up that ability to sit quietly with each other, because that's very important too for an intimate bond. Then I realized that actually you could do all of that and end up being best friends, but without the desire for sex. So I rewrote the chapter. Then I thought, okay, no, I don't like it. Then I thought, okay, let me just go all out to erotic exercise. And then I was like, no, this is not even what I believe. I finally decided. So again, going back to the Kama Sutra, the Kama Sutra says that it's not about what you do or not do. It's about your transitions. So it says that when you sit down to have sex and you decide, you sit down together and before you even start kissing, before you start your foreplay, you start with telling each other naughty stories or telling each other gossip. And the idea is to get your head out of whatever you've been doing during the day. The email you didn't send, the contract you didn't sign, and you come to the present. Mm. You become present with each other.
Yes.
And that's the first thing.
Yes.
So the first thing is to transition from the rest of the day into what you're going to do now. Mm. And so I finally rewrote that. We're talking about transitions.
So here's the thing, that as a yogi, because I'm a absolutely crazy, devoted, avid yogi, and I've been practicing yoga for many, many years, and I teach. And one of the things that I have become more and more passionate about over the years is breath, breathing. I'm not just talking about pranayama, but just using the breath as a means of getting present.
Yeah.
And so, for example, talking about getting present, one of the most incredible ways of getting present, and I had no idea how much the nervous system loves it, is using just a pattern of breathing. Maybe just have a few breaths, like a few breaths together, and harmonize, synchronize with the breathing. And that just begins to unravel. You could arrive, into that time where you think, God, I really don't want to do this. Oh, I've got things to do. Why am I this is bothering me. And then as soon as you do whatever your thing is, as in like, whether it's the breath or whether you're talking or a combination of those, because you're not going to do the same thing every time, that just shifts gears. And what happens is you get present to each other. You get really present to the beauty of the relationship and the joy of being together, and like, and that just takes over. And then you think, why do I want to be bothered with doing that, thing in the kitchen or that thing on my computer when I'm
could
here?
Be doing this.
Yes.
What could
be better?
Yeah.
And so
what could be more important?
Yeah. What could be more pleasurable at the end of the day? Just
special,
being together is good enough. And then anything else is a bonus,
Yeah. And so in Tantra, the other thing that we talk about is healing through pleasure, right? So in all our philosophies, not just in the Indian philosophies, but across the world, there is the idea of healing through pain, where you sort of put yourself through austerities. You say, all right, I will go without food, I will do whatever.
Some sort of tapas, yeah.
Yeah, some sort of tapas, something that you put yourself through in order to feel more connected to God eventually, or to yourself. Then, of course, there is the idea of healing through grief. When I say healing or achieving God, really is what we talk about.
Experiencing.
In Tantra, we talk about the fact that eventually it's to raise your consciousness to that point that you achieve the Almighty. It's about achieving the universal truth. So you either do it, a lot of people believe, through tapas, so you put your body through discomfort. Then there is about grief, so renunciation, giving up things, getting away from people that you love. Basically, putting yourself through some kind of doing without.
Sacrifice.
And finally, there is the healing through pleasure. And now, healing through pleasure, or achieving that higher consciousness through pleasure, is, of course, considered the most powerful one, but also the most difficult. Because with both grief and with pain, the idea is that you experience it to the point where you say, okay, now I do not feel it. I've become numb to it. Like I've experienced this grief, I've experienced this discomfort. I can now go past it. Whereas with pleasure, the idea is that it is as you raise that, and talking about pleasure as the Shakti, as that energy, you raise your pleasure, you come alive, you feel that sense of being alive. Then you come alive further. Like you have to now take that as the base and say, I have to go slightly deeper into that feeling. And then you come alive some more. And when you reach that point, so it's a constant thing of raising that awareness. And it is literally about raising your self-awareness, understanding each point, coming to grips with the knowledge of each nerve ending.
Yes.
And how it's reacting and how it's feeling. So where in those other two, the idea is that you numb your senses. Here you awaken each sense further. And, like you have temples like Konark or Khajuraho in India, where you have the erotic sculptures on the outside. And a lot of people would like to theorize that it's because they're on the outside because you're supposed to leave your desires outside, your material desires, your physical desires. You feel them, you leave them outside before you enter the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. That is not it. You are supposed to feel this. This is supposed to arouse you, because if you go to God in a passionless state, you're not going to be able to achieve God. Getting to that up there is not easy.
No.
It is extremely difficult. And from a dead state, you do not get to them.
From a toxic state. So what I love about yoga, and people don't seem to understand, unless you've been practicing for like in a tapas kind of way, where it becomes such a discipline, that it transforms you. It physically transforms you. We can transform through a whole bunch of things with our traumas, with our past. We can raise our awareness in many ways. But the thing is, when you're talking about Shakti and you're talking about that Kundalini Shakti, that primordial inner power, that divine, sort of that divinity of the feminine rising within you, the reason why it's dangerous for a lot of people is because it literally does transport itself through your nervous system. And if your nervous system is not in a right state for it, the physical body is the final transmitter or the experiencer of and it conducts that energy. So if your nerves are not ready for it, you will burn out. Again, the same thing about pleasure. You can't experience pleasure unless you are in a right fit state for it. So if we drown ourselves in food, drink, drugs, or whatever it might be for people, it tends to numb the senses.
Absolutely. So the first thing, most people, like you said, they'll say, oh, the aim in Tantra is to raise the Kundalini. No, the aim is to first create your energy channels, to build up your strength so that you can channel that energy as it raises. Because when that energy is not channeled, when it's out of control, it's destructive.
Yes.
And a lot of people do actually get to this point, like you were saying, sometimes through different means, you can actually raise a certain amount of energy. And even if it's a little bit within you, and if it's not being channelized properly, they will experience, you get anxiety, you get tremors, there is all of those things that actually happen. People get their hyperventilating. All of that is a result of the energy that is bouncing around inside you.
Yes.
And you
stuck.
do not know how to channel it.
And when it's suddenly pushed out from a stuck place, then there's a forceful element of it as opposed to a pleasurable element of it.
Yes.
So it, again,
it doesn't energize you, it destroys you.
Yeah. And my concern I think in terms of people denying these aspects of ourselves, especially women kind of not allowing ourselves, and men do as well, I think, to a certain extent. It's not just women, they also shut down in various ways. And then that the energy has to go somewhere. So whether they fulfill themselves or they think they fulfill themselves through external means, whether it's food or whatever else it might be, what that ends up doing is it suppresses the energy that naturally wants to rise, and it makes it difficult for it to flow. And then we get disease and we get a whole bunch. I mean, I'm hypothesizing here now. Of course, a scientist might absolutely debunk what I'm saying, but I feel like that happens.
There's a wonderful story of this man running through the forest. He's being chased by a lion, and he's running through the forest. And he can't get away, so he's kind of dodging between trees. And then suddenly his foot slips and he falls down the side of a cliff. So there's a ravine. And he falls down. And as he falls down, instead of slithering all the way down, there's a tree growing out from the side, from the side of the cliff. And he gets stuck on that. And so there he is, hanging on to this tree trunk for dear life. And he looks up and he realizes he can't climb up because now the lion is waiting on the top for him. And he looks down and it's a long way down, deep, deep ravine. So he knows that if he falls, if he tries to go down, he will die. And if he goes up there, the lion will catch him and he will die. And at some point, he just kind of goes, there is nothing. I have no other choice. And there's a little berry over there that's growing out of the branch. And so he picks that berry and he eats it. And it is the sweetest, most juicy berry that he has ever tasted. Because finally, the idea is that you realize that you are so present at this point, and that you have realized that this moment might
be the last.
It. There may not be another moment. And so you completely immerse yourself in that. And that's exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah. It really is about actually bringing yourself to a place where you can be so fully present in yourself. And so all these practices that we have, yoga, Tantra, and tell me, why they all kind of lead to that ability to be more present, to be more ready to experience the higher states.
Yes.
Why has Tantra become so maligned? Tell me.
Because of, again, a lack of education and a misunderstanding. Tantra is a fairly esoteric practice at the best of times, where people, it's quite hidden, It came out as a sort of almost like a pushback against the Brahminical practices of kind of discriminating between you are a lower caste, I'm an upper caste, you can't do this, I can do this. So it was about trying to push back against discrimination and against this idea of purity to the point where, sometimes you almost forget. Sometimes I look at some of the rituals that people practice. You almost forget to practice the ritual through here because you're so concerned about how that one little finger might be off piece over here. You know what I mean? So this was about saying that everything in life is connected. Everything was created by God. So everything is connected and you have to learn and understand everything to enable yourself to achieve that higher being. So you have to learn. There's no such thing as good knowledge and bad knowledge. Just like nature has a cycle of birth and death, you have to understand the gruesomeness and the grimness of things as much as the beauty and the newness of things.
Right.
And that is something that most people don't like to think of when they, when you worship, you're so set on how beautiful you can make it, which is fine. That's understandable.
But you have to deal with the shadow.
You have to deal with the shadow. And in Tantra, there is a goddess called Matangi.
Matangi.
The Matangi. Matangi is one of the Mahavidyas.
Yes.
And she's number 9, I think, on the list of Mahavidyas. And Matangi is worshipped with leftovers. So period blood and leftover crumbs.
Mm.
And the idea was always, which is I did 2 semesters with this wonderful lady called Dr. Kersenboom, who was initiated into the cult of the Devadasis. So she teaches at the University of Netherlands in Amsterdam. And she is a master in Carnatic and Tamil music and speaks Sanskrit fluently and Tamil fluently. I mean, puts me to shame. But she was trying to explain to me about the presence of the power of the leftovers. So the belief is that it is through the leftovers that evil enters. When you have to do something, you raise your energy to do it. You use up whatever energy is going to be used for that task. The leftover energy, when that task is finished, you'll notice, if you do something big after that, there is that little dip, the anticlimax. And it is at that point, what are the thoughts that enter your mind? How does your blood flow change? How does your breathing change at that point?
Interesting.
So symbolically, we talk about Matangi being worshipped through crumbs, leftover crumbs, etc. But it is this whole idea of leftover energy.
Mm.
And I think that we don't give that enough thought. That is an extremely important part of, that is really what sustains us. Those high moments are few and far between. It is the leftover energy that defines how you go into your next action.
Yeah, the transition. Absolutely. And that brings me to one of the other Dasvidyas, which is Kamakya. And
Yes.
she's also one where related to, menstrual, the menstrual cycle. And we were there, actually. We were there a couple of years ago. And I'm telling you, inside that temple, the primordial energy, the primal energy that is there, and in the inner sanctum, because we sat there for 20 minutes with a priest, a pandit, and we did a little ceremony. And it was literally that there was this flow of energy from the ground, not just me, my husband as well. Both of us experienced this rising of energy into our spines. And I tell you, I can feel it now. There's not a day that goes by when I am not connected to that.
Yeah.
That whole energy. And I feel like that's to do with the owning of the aspects of being a woman and being feminine, being the divine feminine and the human feminine, sort of integrating the lower aspects of ourselves into the wholeness of everything, because we want, as you say, to kind of float, into the light all the time. But sometimes we need to be grounded in the earth processes.
No, the earth is exactly it, which is where the Kama festivals come in earlier as well. Like I was saying, the love festivals. It is from the earth. I mean, it's wonderful to have a head and a heart full of light. But the grounding from the earth is an entirely different sensation. And that's actually the stabilizing sensation that we have. I found it really, when I was at Kamakya a couple of years ago, there were just so many pandas there, unfortunately. The pandits who are just constantly asking for money. Come over here, give me money, put money. There was just so much noise around that, which was very sad. And then I went down to the Baglamukhi shrine, which is just a little bit lower than Kamakhya. And that really made me sad because my favorite goddess is Baglamukhi.
Yeah.
She is just
she's
the
like,
one that I connect.
Yeah.
She is the one that I truly connect with. She's known as Brahma Astra Rupini.
Really?
Which means
she's the one who's got
who is like
weapon.
the Astra. No, Brahma being the creator, his weapon is the only one that can destroy the entire universe.
All right.
And because she is the goddess of speech, of intelligent speech. They say that she can give you such intelligent speech that with that you have the power to paralyze your enemy. So because she is so powerful in her speech, she's as powerful as Brahma's Astra. So she's Brahma Astra Rupini. And, this guy was just like the Pandit over there, like, paise dalo, paise, like, give me this much money away, move, no, what do you do? Like, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to go away from here and worship her outside in my own this thing. So I create the yellow space to represent her because her entire worship is done with the yellow color. And I had to go and find my own space there. But I agree. I think that we don't understand the power of our earth self. And I think that at some point, the patriarchal powers did understand the power of a woman's earth self. And that's where this narrative was created to subdue her.
Subdue it and suppress it.
Yeah.
And I mean, what I really believe, like, if a woman was to reclaim her erotic self fully, I wonder what her life would look like and what would life look like in general. And then again, for men, what do they stand to gain when they honor rather than fear a woman's erotic power?
So I think men have been taught to fear the woman's erotic power. And I think that the words erotic power have been misrepresented to mean somebody who just wants a lot of sex. So I think that nobody wants to destroy that, because if you actually try and talk about what erotic power or erotic self might look like, it kind of destabilizes what patriarchy was built on, what suppression was built on. And it doesn't really suit a lot of people. So it's just easier to stay ignorant and stick with the narrative. Erotic self, like you said, if Shakti kind of courses through you, if pleasure is a Shakti, if you say that you are fully energized and then you say, oh, no, this part is a bad thing, you shut off part of you, you are literally shutting off part of yourself, part of your brain, part of your capacities. You are making yourself half a person. And erotic power does not mean
domination.
That you're out there. No, that you're out there to have sex all the time.
No.
It literally means coming into your full self. Where if I spend half my life putting myself down because of the female elements of my body, and suddenly I am energized or empowered by those same female elements, I become an entire person. There is absolutely nothing to fear in a woman who is able to accept herself fully with all her power.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, she brings so much more into the lives of everybody else. It just means that she's not your slave. Now, if you've got used to only thinking that a woman is useful if she is serving you, then obviously this, woman who is not serving you is not going to suit your purposes.
We can really go down this huge track of how comes things have become the way they have, and I feel like there's no cheese down that tunnel at this point,
No.
I would rather empower women to understand better. Yesterday I was talking to somebody and I said I was going to have this conversation with you. I said, you got any questions? So 2 young ladies, both of them in their 20s. One of them was so embarrassed. She's like, oh, I don't know anything about, and she became literally red and she literally ran away. And I was thinking, but this is so interesting that, we feel so unable to actually talk about certain things. I got some study here. The Archives of Sexual Behavior shows that in heterosexual encounters, 95% of men orgasm almost always, but only about 65% of women do. I think it's a lot less than that.
I think it's a lot less than that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's only the people that they've included in the study who've, yeah.
Right, from that particular study.
Yeah.
And you know, but like the kinds of questions that women are Googling, what does an orgasm actually feel like? And how do you know if you've really had one? What actually is happening in the body and the mind as a woman has an orgasm? So, I mean, it's like, what is it actually? How do you tell your 27-year-old daughter what the orgasm is actually?
So, okay. So anatomically speaking, it's where two sets of nervous systems collide. So the physical and the nervous system, like, you know, where the thought processes as well as how your body is actually reacting. I mean, in the most basic lay terms. And what that happens is that travels down what they call the vagus nerve, which is all the way to your gut. So from your, from there to the back of your brain,
it's like the longest nerve, right?
Yeah. So it goes all the way down to the gut. And on the way, it has lots of little smaller nerves and arteries that go off this main vagus nerve. And so it impacts a lot of different parts of the body as it goes along. Now, we have come to believe that an orgasm is where everything kind of goes whoosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like fireworks.
Yeah. That isn't necessarily what happens. A lot of people experience very mellow orgasms, so you can just feel like a little rush of pleasure. For some people, it's almost like a feeling of pins and needles in certain parts of the body. Some people actually end up laughing crazily. That's their normal reaction. It's not something that they want to do. Some people will cry.
Release,
So,
nervous
and
release.
It's actually a nervous system release. Some people get pain. So there are actually people who get a lot of pain with. I also know people who've written into me who say that they pass out with it. So you faint with it. And that's a very normal reaction, apparently. We've even got that in the Rastarangini, which is one of the, I think,
Kama Sutras.
And it's one of the later texts on the Rasa poetry. It's, this woman talking about how she passes out when she has an orgasm. And her lover got so frightened. When he saw her pass out, he thought she'd died, so he ran for it and ruined the mood. So basically, but, so there, but I think what most people don't realize is that mostly, honestly, the orgasm is literally like a little ripple.
Mm.
And it could just come and go. Like you said, everything changes, nothing is static. So if you are orgasming like this today, you may be orgasming like that tomorrow.
Yeah.
It could be just completely different.
Yeah.
But I think that the word orgasm has become like such a bugbear in our vocabulary. Suddenly it's everywhere. Everybody's now working towards it, trying to get one, talking about getting one, talking about not getting one, wondering why they're not getting one. It's almost like that's all that's occupying our mind. And I just want to say that the more you fret about not getting an orgasm, the more you will not get it. Because like you were saying earlier, that it's amazing how the brain responds to your breath. Like the brain will only know that you're relaxed if your breath is right. You can keep telling the brain, I'm fine. But till it recognizes the breathing pattern, it's not going to believe that you're okay. It's the same thing with orgasms. You have to be so chilled and so like completely in a different state of mind to be able to access the orgasm. And some of them are, a lot of women get their orgasms from squeezing their thighs together. So that puts pressure on the clitoris. Kids start doing it even before they know what they're doing because it's a very pleasurable sensation and people just do it automatically. And I have realized that even during that, and it's a foolproof, it's like a fail-safe. Anytime I feel like, okay, I really need a little orgasm, I really need a little something just to get me going, I will just do that if I have no time for anything else. But even during that time, if my brain goes anywhere else, that orgasm is gone.
It's gone.
Oh, and I also want to say, just to say that a lot of people talk about squirting. Now, squirting is the other big thing that people are talking about, right? Yeah, squirting is something that, again, people are now, it's very aspirational. They've seen it on porn. They've heard about it. They want to try it. Squirting is not a form of orgasm. It's a whole different set of sensations. And you get to a certain point where you build up the excitement, but then you have to go a very different way to how you would normally pursue an orgasm if you want to go for that. So I just want people to stop focusing so much on the orgasm.
Isn't it a natural sort of course of events that when you're relaxed, there are glands inside the female pelvis, that are so deeply buried. We don't even know that they're there. And one after the other, they can start to make themselves known. It's a little bit like being in I don't know, like a honey factory or something. You have this flavor and that flavor and that one, that's fragrant and that and so on. And you don't know what's going to activate itself through which, I don't know, at what time. Isn't that a lot down to kind of not thinking about it? It's the opposite to actually doing something. It's a case of being in your own skin and being just present.
Yep. And one of the reasons that a lot of women do not get orgasms during penetration is because further along the vaginal canal, there are fewer and fewer nerve endings. So most of them are closer to the entrance. As you go further nearer the cervix, there are far fewer. So it is generally not, just that basic touch of the in and out that you will feel with penetration.
Doesn't do it.
It doesn't do anything for you because there's very few nerve endings over there. Occasionally, if you're having a particularly good day and the foreplay has been amazing and you are that aroused where the blood flow has gone in there fully, it's really engorged all of the tissue over there, it's been some time, it then makes that area more sensitive. When the tissues become more engorged, they become more sensitive. And so there is a possibility then, it increases the possibility that you will have an orgasm during penetration. But for most of us, most of the time, that is not going to happen. So the thing is, like we said earlier, the female body has the capacity to have an orgasm through so many different ways. Do it differently.
Yeah.
This is not an exam that you are trying to ace, that no, I will not do it any other way. I am going to try this. I'm going to do the penetration till I pass out, but I will only go for that.
A lot of that depends also, I think, on the compatibility in terms of physical bodies between the man and, I'm talking now man and woman particularly, and in a heterosexual scenario where a lot depends on how well you guys actually fit together, because if this is where size tends to come into the picture. It does tend to make a difference that if you're not really
if you're not synced in size, but then that's what the positions were actually created for.
The Kama Sutra is there
the positions were created to help you to synchronize your sizes. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
I was going to say, earlier we were talking about Tantra, and there's something I've noticed over the years in my own yogic practice is that whenever there is an elevation of awareness, Kundalini rises, however it manifests itself, a lot of the time, even just through meditation and so on, I have had people sitting around me suddenly saying, "What perfume are you wearing?" And I would say, "I don't wear perfume because I'm allergic to perfume."
Okay.
And I wasn't always, but since this process has begun, I'm just not allowed to wear perfume. And I find that actually, if we leave the body alone, and if we were to, because you talk a lot about perfume, don't you, as part of the ritual of sort of seduction, and I've noticed that when we detoxify ourselves and when we start to really have a body that's in tune with itself, and then whatever other practice, meditation, whatever you may do to keep, to elevate your awareness and also to become more healthy, I find that the body finds its own fragrances, and they tend to become very and they're there all the time at different parts of the body, different fragrances, like here or whatever. It's really interesting to me how that happens. Have you heard of that before, or is that my imagination?
No, I'm sure it's not your imagination. I haven't come across anybody who said that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Because people literally say to me, "What perfume are you wearing?" I'm like, I literally don't wear anything because I am so allergic to the linalool in fragrances, like the particular component of that. I feel like the more we can blend with our partner in so many different ways, more harmony there is. Not synchronicities, harmony, however you might want to say, in life in general, everyday life, in how you are with each other, in the relationship itself, the better all these experiences are.
I think that always helps. If you are more in harmony with the other person, that is going to make a difference to how you approach something. If you are overcoming obstacles to get there, the journey is just a little bit less smooth. It's just that simple. If the road is very smooth, you are going to get to a certain point more easily. I don't think that it's necessarily a block to anything, but it's going to make it so much better. But it becomes
a part of the learning and sort of becoming more whole. And if you're willing to go through that challenge and confront it,
yes,
and see what it takes, because a lot of the times it's really about the willingness to confront what doesn't work.
Okay, you don't like this, and I can see that maybe this in me could be different. But I find that with a lot of people, the block also will come if the other person then, if you are ready to do it and say, all right, I will shed my ego and do this, but you are still not doing it. I think that it's a really difficult place to be. I also think that sometimes one of the things that I was taught a long time ago, we were always told that, if you build up your relationship first, sex will then be great. I was eventually taught that actually, if you build up your sexual life first, because that's the first thing you come to each other with before you have the chance to build up your emotional compatibility. If your sex is great, you want to make that effort for each other a lot more, generally speaking. I know there are toxic relationships that also work in entirely different ways, but generally this idea of pleasurable, good, happy, consensual sex is something that will come before your emotional connect.
Interesting. But isn't that a lottery for a lot of people? Because I think this is, my channel is called the Self-Discovery Channel. My books are all about how I have overcome my challenges in life and continue to do that, and really going all the way from childhood to today. So I'm a huge proponent that we have to put ourselves into our own discovery first. And self meaning, yes, the human being here, but actually the self beyond, the higher self.
Yeah.
Because the two, the higher informs the lower, but if the lower is not informed by that, then we tend to get into trouble. We don't listen to what's for our higher good. And then we end up in places that possibly we could have avoided. I say, listen to your inner voice. Yeah, I call it the inner diamond because it's your treasure. It won't misguide you ever. And for me, that's the journey that I really believe in and that I personally have followed. But I also know that that's not how other people come into life. Everybody doesn't do that. And that, everyone's journey is different. So when we are talking about starting with a good relationship intimately with our partner that we want to spend the rest of our life with, how does that work nowadays in India? How is that?
I just think it's about intention. It's only ever about intention. I think that I personally feel that it needs to start with mutual respect. If you feel you are respected, it goes so far into making you want to give that respect back.
Right.
I really do feel that, everything else is on the side. I mean, everybody has a different idea of what they find attractive in somebody, or what they want out of somebody, or what kind of conversation they want from someone. And I think that for me, how that respect would translate is that if I said to you, because everybody's different, I mean, and every day we are different. So if I said to you, but this is what I really like, and this is what I don't like when you talk to me like that. I don't like that tone, whatever. Let's say it's something as simple as that. Are you actually listening to me? Are you showing up for me in that moment? We all know what respect is. We do. We all know it. We also know when we disrespect the other person. We also know when we shrug off whatever they've said because it's more trouble than you want to put into it. And I think that at some point, that is where it all boils down to. I've always said, it's funny how Khalil Gibran said it in his beautiful poem about how, whether you call it a relationship, a marriage, whatever, but when you're together, you are not one pillar stuck together. You're two pillars supporting the same infrastructure. Be strong, be next to each other, be there to support each other, but you don't have to constantly be stuck. And I really believe that if you do not give yourself the chance to be the full person that you are, at some stage, you start feeling resentful.
And angry. And sad.
And that is going to impact how you look at the other person. And I know that a lot of people are like, well, in the olden days, people didn't think like that. Marriages were not perfect. They were far from perfect in the olden days. Women did not have the financial capacity to walk away or to demand better. That's how life reality was.
And that's why it worked.
That's why it worked, because they just put up with it.
Yeah.
And, and
at great cost, by the way, Seema.
At great cost.
To themselves, to the family, and to the marriage.
Absolutely. And what I find is that, a lot of the young people I talk to, a lot of the young women will always say, I've always wanted to work because I want my mum to have what she didn't have. Because growing up, they saw that their mum had to always ask for what she wanted. It was, even if you got it, the point is you had to ask for it. You always put yourself one step back and said, let everybody else have what they want. Your needs came after everybody else's. And that was glorified.
Yeah.
And that was celebrated as though that was a great thing. And a lot of the women have turned around and said, no, we want to make this possible for our mom. I want my mom to have whatever she wants when she wants it, rather than waiting for somebody to give it to her. A lot of the men, unfortunately, have still not seen it. Some have. They notice it. They want to do as much as they can. A lot of men, I've noticed, are still coming back and thinking, well, my mom never complained. My mom served everybody. My mom did all this. Now I want my partner to do this for me. And I think that's where the
rude awakening comes.
Yeah, because you have to understand that that is no longer acceptable. And why should it be? Honestly, a woman is not born with any specific organ that is labeled to serve only. Like literally, the woman, this is social conditioning. It's a social narrative. The woman is not born, created by God to say that she's only coming to serve you. No man was born with an organ which says, I am the master.
On that note, nothing needs to be said more for today, but I would love to have another conversation on another occasion to continue this. Thank you so much, Seema, for joining me today. It was such an interesting conversation. And I hope our viewers will also, find it really useful. And if you guys haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please subscribe. We really can do with a lot of support from all of you. And those of you that have subscribed, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And keep watching and keep giving us your feedback. And we'd love to know what you enjoyed in this podcast. Thank you so much.